From humanity's earliest steps, the unknown has beckoned. Vast, unexplored territories. Uncharted seas. A relentless drive to push beyond the horizon, to claim what lies hidden. Yet, with every triumph, there is the shadow of risk. The profound silence that follows when an expedition, once brimming with hope and ambition, simply ceases to be. What compels individuals to face such perilous odds? What forces conspire to swallow them whole? History is littered with such stories. But few resonate with the chilling persistence of this particular enigma. A journey into the frozen heart of mystery. Among all the Earth's untamed frontiers, none have proven quite as unforgiving, quite as capable of swallowing ambition whole, as the Arctic. A realm of crushing ice, relentless cold, and blinding blizzards. A place where the sun disappears for months, plunging the world into an eternal twilight. It offers no quarter, no mercy. Only a chilling, indifferent silence. To venture into its embrace was to gamble with fate itself. A gamble that, for some, would prove irrevocably fatal. Their last great voyage. Our story begins in 1845. The British Empire, at the zenith of its power, harbored one final, audacious geographical goal: to discover the Northwest Passage. That elusive sea route through the Arctic archipelago of Canada, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific. A shortcut that promised immense commercial and strategic advantage. For decades, expeditions had tried and failed. But this time, it would be different. This time, Britain would send its best. And equip them with the very latest technology. A grand endeavor. A fatal flaw. Leading this monumental undertaking was Sir John Franklin. A seasoned explorer, a veteran of several Arctic expeditions, though not without controversy. He had served under Flinders in Australia, fought at Trafalgar, and even been Lieutenant Governor of Van Diemen's Land, modern-day Tasmania. At 59, he was experienced, well-regarded, and determined. Perhaps too determined. He believed this expedition would be his crowning achievement. His legacy secured. Instead, it became his epitaph. A chilling disappearance. To conquer the Arctic, the Admiralty provided two of the finest ships ever built for polar exploration, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. These were not mere wooden vessels. They were iron-reinforced, fitted with steam engines, a revolutionary addition, and equipped with a screw propeller. Designed to withstand the crushing ice, these ships represented the cutting edge of naval technology. Unsinkable, they thought. Invincible. The ultimate tools for Arctic mastery. A testament to human ingenuity. A tragic overconfidence. Aboard these formidable ships, 129 officers and men set sail. A diverse group of seasoned sailors, scientists, and adventurers. They were provisioned for 3 years, enough canned food, lemon juice, to prevent scurvy, and other supplies to sustain them through multiple Arctic winters. Their mission was clear: navigate the ice, chart the unknown, and return with glory. A grand undertaking, meticulously planned. Yet, even the best plans falter. The Arctic has its own designs. Its own brutal logic. On May 19, 1845, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror departed from Greenhithe, England. It was a spectacle of national pride. Crowds cheered from the banks of the Thames, waving goodbye to their heroes. Hopes were high. The expedition was expected to return within 2 to 3 years. Many believed the passage would finally be conquered. The ship sailed north, stopping briefly in Greenland. Then, they vanished. Into the vast, trackless wilderness. A disappearing act. The greatest maritime mystery of the age. The last confirmed sighting of the Erebus and Terror by Europeans was in late July 1845. Whaling ships encountered the expedition in Baffin Bay, off the west coast of Greenland. The ships were reportedly all well. Spirits were high. They were waiting for a favorable moment to push westward into Lancaster Sound, the gateway to the Arctic archipelago. This was it. The precipice. The moment they slipped from the known world into something else entirely. A final wave. A last glimpse. Then, only silence. As autumn turned to winter, the Arctic ice began its annual, relentless expansion. It would have closed around the ships, locking them in a frozen embrace. For the experienced polar explorer, this was expected. A routine part of the game. They would settle in, conserve resources, wait for spring. But this winter was different. Or perhaps, what came next was different. The first long night fell. The first test of their resilience. No word. Just the howling wind. And the tightening grip of the ice. Months turned into a year. 1846 passed into 1847. Still, no word. In London, an initial sense of calm began to fray. Delays were common in Arctic exploration. But this was an unusually long silence. Lady Jane Franklin, Sir John's devoted wife, became increasingly anxious. Had they found the passage? Were they simply too far north to communicate? Or had something gone terribly wrong? The questions grew louder. The answers remained shrouded in ice and distance. A growing dread. By 1848, the Admiralty could no longer ignore the growing unease. Franklin's expedition was officially overdue. A massive search effort was planned, a testament to Britain's naval power and its commitment to its explorers. 3 separate expeditions would be dispatched. One from the east, one from the west, and one overland. The scale was unprecedented. But the Arctic is vast. Unimaginably so. Like searching for a needle in a continent of white. And time, as always, was of the essence. The clock was ticking. While the Admiralty initiated its official efforts, Lady Jane Franklin launched her own, relentless campaign. She leveraged her wealth, her connections, and her formidable will to fund and organize private search parties. She wrote to world leaders, petitioned Parliament, and became a driving force behind almost every subsequent search for her husband. Her hope, unwavering. Her determination, extraordinary. She refused to accept their fate. A powerful advocate. A desperate quest. Over the next few years, numerous expeditions crisscrossed the Canadian Arctic. Sir James Clark Ross, Robert McClure, Edward Belcher. They faced treacherous ice, unimaginable cold, and the crushing despair of finding nothing. No trace of the Erebus or Terror. No sign of the 129 men. The vastness of the territory, coupled with the brutal conditions, made an effective search almost impossible. Each failed attempt deepened the mystery. Each returning ship brought only more questions. An echoing silence. Amidst the official search efforts, the first, disturbing whispers began to emerge from the Inuit communities who had lived in the Arctic for millennia. They spoke of encounters with starving white men, dragging boats across the ice. Of bodies scattered across desolate lands. Of strange objects left behind. These were the first real clues, fragmented and chilling. But their reports were often dismissed or misunderstood by European searchers, tainted by cultural bias and skepticism. A crucial warning. Unheeded. The first threads of a grim tapestry. In 1854, Dr. John Ray, a Hudson's Bay Company surgeon and experienced Arctic traveler, provided the first truly tangible, and utterly horrifying, evidence. During an overland survey, he met with Inuit hunters who recounted a dire tale. They had seen around 40 emaciated white men, struggling south, some years earlier. And then, a few months later, found their bodies. With them, they had discovered items clearly belonging to members of the Franklin expedition. The grim truth began to surface. A horrifying revelation. The Inuit accounts shared with Dr. Ray included a detail that shocked Victorian society to its core: evidence of cannibalism. Skeletons found with cut marks, suggesting a desperate struggle for survival. The notion that British naval heroes could resort to such an act was unthinkable, scandalous. Charles Dickens himself publicly denounced the claims, refusing to believe such a degradation. Yet, the evidence, however grisly, pointed to an unspeakable horror. The ultimate taboo. A sign of profound despair. Despite the horrific nature of Ray's report, and the growing despair, Lady Jane Franklin refused to give up. She saw the cannibalism accusations as an insult to her husband's memory and an excuse for the Admiralty to cease searching. In 1857, she funded one final, privately backed expedition. Led by Captain Leopold McClintock aboard the steam yacht Fox, it would prove to be the most successful, and the most heartbreaking, of all. Her ultimate gamble. A desperate, final search. McClintock's expedition focused its search in new areas. And soon, they found their first grim clues. On Beechey Island, they discovered 3 graves, belonging to Franklin's men who had died in the winter of 1845-46. John Torrington, John Hartnell, and William Braine. Their bodies were remarkably preserved by the permafrost. These graves confirmed the initial location of Franklin's first winter camp. A haunting sign. The expedition had indeed been here. And men had died. So early in the journey. Then, on King William Island, came the most significant and chilling discovery, a cairn containing a tin cylinder. Inside, a pre-printed Admiralty form, with handwritten notes. The Victory Point Record. It detailed the expedition's progress up to May 28, 1847. They had successfully navigated the Northwest Passage, or so they thought, and were iced in off King William Island. All well, it claimed. Sir John Franklin himself signed it. A moment of triumph. Or so it seemed. The first layer of truth. But the Victory Point record held a second, more desperate, and devastating update. Scrawled in the margins, dated April 25, 1848, was a new entry. It stated that the ships Erebus and Terror had been abandoned on April 22, 1848, after being beset by ice for 19 months. It also recorded the deaths of 9 officers and 15 men, including, shockingly, Sir John Franklin himself, who had died on June 11, 1847. The remaining 105 survivors were attempting to march south, to the Great Fish River. A desperate plan. A doomed venture. The second entry confirmed the worst. The ships were lost. Franklin was dead. And 105 men, likely starving and weakened, were attempting an impossible march across one of the most desolate landscapes on Earth. Their objective, the mainland, hundreds of miles away. Dragging heavy lifeboats and supplies, they faced brutal cold, scarce food, and the crushing despair of their situation. This was not an organized retreat. It was a desperate flight. A final, tragic gamble against the Arctic itself. McClintock and his men followed the heartbreaking trail. They found an abandoned lifeboat, mounted on a sledge, containing watches, silver cutlery, guns, evidence of the men's fading strength as they discarded all but what was essential. And then, the bodies. Scattered across King William Island and Adelaide Peninsula. Some partially buried, some left where they fell. The expedition had disintegrated into a series of individual deaths. No grand last stand. Just a slow, agonizing demise. The Arctic claimed them all. For decades, the specific cause of the disaster remained debated. While starvation and exposure were obvious factors, the discovery of well-preserved bodies in the Beechey Island graves provided new clues. Autopsies in the 1980s revealed extremely high levels of lead in the bones of the dead men. The theory emerged: faulty tinning of their canned provisions had leached lead into their food, causing lead poisoning. Could this have led to madness, impaired judgment, and hastened their doom? A hidden enemy. While lead poisoning likely played a significant role, it was almost certainly not the sole culprit. Scurvy, a debilitating disease caused by vitamin C deficiency, would have weakened them. Tuberculosis, pneumonia, and other illnesses common in cramped, unsanitary conditions would have ravaged the crew. The psychological toll of prolonged isolation, extreme cold, and dwindling hope must have been immense. It was a perfect storm of environmental brutality and human vulnerability. A slow, agonizing siege. Despite the grim discoveries on King William Island, one major piece of the puzzle remained missing for over a century and a half: the ships themselves. HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. Where did they finally rest? The Victory Point records stated they were abandoned. But the Arctic is a dynamic, shifting environment. Could they have been crushed and sunk? Or did they drift with the ice, becoming ghost ships in the desolate expanse? The ultimate prize of the search still eluded historians and explorers. A watery grave, uncharted. In the 21st century, advancements in underwater technology and a renewed public interest ignited a modern search for Franklin's ships. Parks Canada, along with various private and Inuit partners, launched extensive expeditions. Using sonar, autonomous underwater vehicles, and detailed historical analysis, they combed vast swaths of the Arctic seabed. The dream of finding the Erebus and Terror, though distant, felt within reach. The technology was finally catching up to the century-old mystery. A modern quest. And then, in 2014, after years of painstaking work, came the breakthrough. On September 7, 2014, a Parks Canada search team located the wreck of HMS Erebus in relatively shallow waters off King William Island. It was remarkably preserved, standing upright on the seabed. The discovery sent shockwaves around the world. Here, finally, was one of Franklin's lost ships. A tangible link to the past. A moment of triumph. But with it, a torrent of new questions. What secrets did she still hold? Her final resting place revealed. Just 2 years later, in 2016, a small Arctic Research Foundation team, guided by Inuit oral history, made an even more astonishing find. HMS Terror, Franklin's second ship, was discovered 50 miles north of Erebus, in Terror Bay. It was even more intact than its sister ship. Windows still present, masts broken but largely in place, even some porcelain dishes visible through open hatches. A ghost ship, almost perfectly preserved by the cold, deep waters. The Arctic had given up another secret. But not all of them. The discovery of Erebus and Terror has allowed archaeologists to begin unraveling more of the mystery. The ship's pristine condition suggests a relatively orderly abandonment, not a violent sinking. Artifacts recovered offer tantalizing glimpses into the crew's final days: personal effects, scientific instruments, ship stores. But still, no definitive explanation for the entire disaster. The ships tell one part of the story. The scattered bodies on land tell another. The complete narrative remains elusive. A puzzle, still unsolved. Despite the discoveries, theories about the expedition's ultimate fate continue to evolve. Was it the lead poisoning combined with scurvy, slowly debilitating the men and clouding their judgment? Was it a combination of extreme cold, starvation, and diseases like tuberculosis? Or did the rigid adherence to naval discipline, a refusal to adapt to Inuit survival methods, seal their fate? Perhaps a mutiny, a final desperate struggle? The answers are likely a complex tapestry of all these elements. No single villain. Just a host of converging tragedies. The Franklin expedition remains a stark reminder of the immense power of nature and the fragility of human endeavor. Even with the best technology and the bravest men, the Arctic can humble the mightiest. The final moments of the 105 men marching south are still largely unknown. Their personal stories, their final thoughts, lost to the ice. The ships, now protected, continue to yield secrets. But the full, agonizing truth of that last expedition may forever be locked away. A chilling silence. A lasting mystery. The Franklin expedition transformed from a symbol of British might into a cautionary tale. It spurred future explorers to adopt more flexible methods, to learn from indigenous peoples, and to prioritize survival over rigid adherence to plans. The ghost of Franklin's lost men, scattered across the desolate landscape, served as a grim lesson. A humbling experience for an empire that believed it could conquer anything. The Arctic, however, proved to be a different kind of adversary. One that demanded respect and offered none. Today, the wrecks of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror are protected historical sites, offering an unparalleled window into 19th-century Arctic exploration and its tragic consequences. They stand as solemn monuments to ambition, courage, and the ultimate price paid for pushing the boundaries of the known world. The Franklin expedition captivated the world then, and continues to do so now. Its enduring mystery, its human tragedy, speaks to our deepest fears and fascinations. A story whispered on the Arctic winds. Forever incomplete.